So the authorities just informed me or notified me that you can't live in a tiny house in the winter. Now this is our second year here in winter in our tiny house. And here we are coming up on a cold front starting today actually. It's 75 degrees right now. It's supposed to drop this evening, and it's going to continue to get colder and colder and finally get into the teens by end of the week or early next week. I guess it's Thursday. So I guess by Sunday, I guess we'll be in the teens. So I'm not really sure how to handle this. Quite the shock to me. So I thought I'd take you around and kind of show you what I have set up. And in my mind, I feel like I'm in much better shape than people who live in a mobile home, or heck, even some homes. I lived in a home and my water would always freeze every year. So I'm not really sure why we're not set up quite as well. But I'm going to take you around. Well, of course, first thing you notice that we have the wood stove. You know that from previous videos. And we don't have any problems with wood heat. I let the temperature drop to about 62 degrees this year so far, every day. And then I light it up. And the temperature in the house gets up about 82 degrees, raises about 20 degrees in here. And then it maintains that heat all day long. Of course, it's slowly dropping all day. And I would say, well, depending on the temperature, if it's really cold, like down into the teens, about 3 o'clock, so from 5 o'clock a.m. to 3 p.m., the house stays pretty warm. And then I light it again, and then about 9 o'clock I light it again, just so we can get through the night. Now, if it gets really cold, sometimes I get up in the middle of the night and throw a log in there. Carolyn stays up later than I do, so she might throw a log in there before she goes to bed. But on regular days, you know, temperatures above 20 degrees, you light this in the morning, stays warm all day long. And that's the way it's been all fall. And it doesn't use a lot of firewood. I mean, look at the size of this stick. Put it up against my hand to scale for scale. But it's just tiny. That's not even a full log. It doesn't take much to heat this house. The water tank, I can understand a person's concern. The water tank, I have a 275 gallon water tank sitting outside. It is in an insulated box. I'm going to show you here in a minute what it looks like. But before I go out there, I have ventilation running to the box. So here above the shower, you'll see that I have ventilation. And there's a fan that draws air through here and into that box outside. When it's really cold, I'll put two fans, one here and then one where at the wall. And I plug those in before it gets below freezing. Last year, it never did freeze. Now the year before it did, but I didn't have it really set up well. That was our first year here. We were kind of in a rush to get into the house. So it did freeze. And the other thing is we got below zero. I have a backup system water. A lot of homes don't have a backup system. Now, one of the things that is the complaint is that we cook outside, and I'm not sure how that is a disadvantage to anything. I think it's somewhat of an advantage because all those gases and fumes are not in the house. We have 2 smoke detectors, we have 2 carbon monoxide detectors, and we have 2 fire extinguishers in the house, one on both sides of the bed, one for Carolyn, one for me. And then I have a fire extinguisher in the truck. If can't get to it, I can run out there and grab that one. So I think it's better that it's actually cooking out here, just so we don't have the fumes. So I'm going to go ahead and take you over here to the tank, and then I want to talk. I mean, I got all kinds of things I want to show you. So here's the water tank box, and so all you got to do is raise the lid, and you can see the styrofoam insulation. Under here is an IBC tank. I'm not going to open it up right now, but there's an IBC tank in here with 275 gallons of water. The thing you have to understand is not only do I have heat coming from the house into the tank here to keep it warm, every few days I come out here and I fill the tank up with water. Now, we don't use a lot of water, which is kind of a disadvantage. We use about 10 gallons a day. So every 4 days, 5 days, I come out here and I fill the tank back up. The tank is being filled up with warm water. So let's say the water in the tank is 45 or 40 degrees or 35 degrees. If I put well water in it, that well water's 55, 65, 60 degrees, somewhere around there. So that raises the temperature of the water in the tank. So I'm always keeping it heated by just adding water. Now the interesting thing is if this freezes, I still have the backup system I was telling you about. I can come over here and I, of course, fill the tank with the well like I just showed you, but I can also run a hose, you can see the hose adapter right here, from the well start the generator so water's pumping, and take it into the house through the water heater. So all I got to do is disconnect the water heater, which I'll show you here in a minute, from the tank, and then run the hose from the well to the water heater, run the water. So now I've got hot water coming straight from the well. The well will never freeze because I have a hole drilled into the black pipe. There's a black pipe that goes all the way down, holds the well pump. It's a submersible pump. And I have a hole drilled down about 70 feet. Every time I shut off the water, that water drains back down so it can't freeze because there's no water in the pipe. These old-fashioned wells would have required a pressure tank. Well, I guess all wells require a pressure tank, but this one, you put a pressure tank out here, so then you fill the pressure tank, and then when you use water in the house, the pressure tank discharges into the house, and then the well kicks on, fills the pressure tank, and it's constantly cycling like that. The problem is the pressure tank can freeze. So you would have to probably run the pressure tank in the house. Well, of course, we have a small house, so that would be inconvenience, but most people back in the day would insulate this and then have like a light bulb in here to try to keep it warm. But I don't even have to do that. Now, the downside is I do use a propane generator here. You see the propane tank. I do have a gasoline generator. I may have to move it up here this winter, but propane generators tend to struggle to start in the wintertime. I've already noticed and had experience to this. It's not really wintertime, but when it's colder mornings, this thing just does not want to start because something to do with the pressure in the propane tank. As the pressure drops in the propane tank, somehow that keeps the generator from starting. I'm not sure I really understand that because there's a pressure regulating valve. If pressure is a problem, why not just take that off? But regardless, that's what it is. In order to resolve that problem, all I gotta do is take the propane tank inside the house and let it warm up for a little bit. And I know somebody's gonna say, oh, you can't do that, it's gonna blow up. Well, tell that to nomads. All these nomads running around the country with propane tanks inside their vans. Seems like a little bit more of a risk in an RV. So I'm gonna take you back inside. I'm gonna show you the water heater and how I can just simply disconnect the tank and add the hose from the well. So here's the hose that comes from the tank right here. All I gotta do is disconnect it. This is a little one-way valve that I've attached. When I kick that on, the RV pump in the tank kicks on. Now I got water. Shut it off. So all I gotta do is disconnect this water hose and then connect the water hose from the well to this. The only downside to this is once you kick the water on, you can't shut it off because the well pump would then what's called deadhead and you could burn up the well pump. So as long as you remember to leave it running, and then when you want to shut the water off, run outside, shut the generator off, and then let the water drain back down into the well from that 70 feet. Then you have to disconnect the hose and bring it inside and drain it and everything so it doesn't freeze. So I have a backup water system that nobody else in their homes have. Well, I would say most people don't have. Now the other thing is I have a Mr. Heater portable buddy. It's up in the attic right now, and we used it a little bit last night as an experiment. We still had pretty wet wood last year. So when springtime rolled around, we were kind of running out of dry firewood. And I didn't want to run wet wood because the first year we were here, that's all we had was wet firewood. So as late winter, early spring started to roll around, we took out the Mr. Heater portable buddy, brought it down here and ran it. And it doesn't have a thermostat on it. That means, so you got to turn it on, turn it off manually. But it did a really good job. This house is just under 200 square feet. So when you're running the buddy heater, I think it heats like 250 square feet. But within an hour, you could bring the temperature of this house from 65 degrees to 75 degrees pretty easily, and then come over and shut it off. And then about every hour or so, you kick it on for 15 minutes and shut it off. It is inconvenient, granted. But if something were to happen to the wood stove, we do have that as a backup. The downside to that is I don't think the buddy heater would put out enough heat to heat the water outside. When the temperature gets down to teens, I don't think it would be able to keep that tank from freezing. But that's okay, because like I said, we still have the well. So plenty of systems in place to keep warm and to make sure we have plenty of water. As far as electric, which was another criticism, we don't really require a lot of electric, and I don't understand why the solar panels isn't considered electric. I mean, we have electric. Batteries, no matter what you got, lead acid or lithium ion or whatever it is, batteries will deplete a little bit in the winter. And so you got to be on top of them a little bit more. And so I'm going to replace our oldest battery. I was going to regenerate it, but I decided I'm going to replace it. It's really old. And I thought, why not just go ahead and replace it? I can get a core charge out of it. I think it's $20 or something. So I'll just go ahead and replace that. But in the wintertime, you got to run the generator a little bit more because it's more cloudy and the days are shorter. So here recently, I've been running it like an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening just to top it off before I go to bed, top off the batteries. And then when I get up in the morning, so I'm not stressing the batteries and depleting them too much, I run it for another hour. So a couple hours a day. And a gallon of gas on that little generator, it's similar to the propane one you just saw, lasts 11 hours. So, I mean, we're talking 6 to 7 days that a tank of gas will last on that. Now, if something were to happen to wood stove, the only thing I could imagine that would really easily be a problem is the glass. I have broke the glass before, twice last year, as a matter of fact. One I was, long story, one of them it was stupid. But I broke the glass, and I ordered another one, and I realized that they weren't going to get it shipped to me in time to install it before I needed to use it. So I ordered it from a different company, and they shipped it over like the next day. So I installed that one. Well, when the second one came in, now I have a backup one if something were to happen to this. The other thing I can do is I got a piece of metal where I can just put it on this, and it would be a good substitute for the glass. Of course, it wouldn't be as pretty. I like the glass. So in a regular house, it seems to me a regular house is harder to heat. You're going to use more electric, more energy, more resources, everything to keep a house warm. Now, is it more convenient in a house, in a regular house? Sure, you adjust the thermostat and you're done. You don't have to worry about it the rest of the winter. Both of us are capable of starting the wood stove. Both of us are capable of hooking up a hose to the well and starting a generator. So if something goes wrong, both of us are capable of handling it. So if I get sick and Carolyn needs water, she'll still be able to get water. We have a Berkey. And I know there's a big controversy about that. Some guy on YouTube decided to criticize Berkey, but I trust Berkey with all my heart. I mean, I just love Berkey. So we got plenty of food. If something were to happen, couldn't get out, we got plenty of food. Chickens are still producing eggs. We got Brahmas, they're producing eggs through the winter. So I think we're set. So these criticisms come from people who think they know everything. They come into the comment section and they criticize us as though they're the experts in tiny house living. But I can assure you, they've never lived here. So if you'll click this up next box, I'd really appreciate it. Take you to a video where I was talking about the wood stove. So I hope I can inspire you to make winter easy so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.